Okay, so safe. Let's talk about the glass card effect quickly. So say I want to create a glass card. So the glass effect, it's not called glassmorphism. Yeah, also called glass effect, popularly known as glass effect. But the industry name is glassmorphism. So it's more like your item will give off a shiny effect, making it look like a glass. And then to add a touch of creativity, you then give it some blur so that anything hovers on, it becomes blur. Um, so let me just give samples. So say I have this. I'm using this tool. So when I hover on it, you then get to see the blur effect. Yes.
Excuse me, sir. Are you sharing your screen? Because we can't see it.
Shit. Uh, Thank you very much.
I can
Sorry
see
about
your
that.
screen too. With my hand.
How about now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Can
okay.
see
So
it.
I just created this a presentation frame just for this. So as I said earlier, we're creating a glass card, right? The industry name is glassmorphism. This is where you make an item give off the glass effect. The corner it will look transparent. Basically, the aim is for it to look transparent, and to add a touch of creativity there, then you again can now make the background blur so that anything it hovers on, generally it just becomes blur. So I'll use this tool for example. Now, one thing I noticed was it does not stay on a white. It's difficult to stay on a white background, considering the fact that we might be using white as our major color. But then we can use shadows to make it pop in case we are designing for white background. So we'll see how that works. So I use this tool so that when I hover on them, you see how the blur effect will put how it works. So just draw a rectangle by clicking on either here or using the arrow on your keyboard and then just draw the rectangle. Um, so I'll give it to subtle bending, that's corner radius. So I have this. Our first thing you do is to change, instead of solid, we use linear, right? So linear, you then get this. Now click on the first one, give it total white, take it to the corners, say here. Click on the second one also, total white, and then take to the corners. You see that right now you can't see anything, yeah? But then if I bring it up here to a background, something that has color, you then see that there's actually something there. That's what I was trying to say that we we don't use this. It's difficult to use on white background. If you add the shadow though, then it comes out. But more often than not, it then defeats the purpose of what we aim to achieve, right? So for that sake, I'll just use probably a darker background in this case. Let's say I use this, a darker background.
Yeah.
Mm.
What I said.
Yeah, Deborah.
Wow. That's cool.
Yes, Deborah, your hands are up. Anything? Okay. So we, I'll go again. First of it was just solid. So you come here, change it to linear, and then move to white. Come here, move to white, then take it diagonally. Right? So it's something like this, diagonal. But more often than not, instead of doing all this, so what I just do is when I draw my rectangle, I just turn the main color to white, right? And then just change it to linear. Then I can now work with it diagonally like this. Yes, Vicky, so
Sorry, it's a mistake, sir.
So now this is now we've created this certain level of transparency, because right now, unlike before where it was just solid, you can't see what is painted here. Let me just do that. When it was just solid, you can't see what's painted. But now that it's we've given it linear, so we can now see partially what's painted. So you come to the first one, and then come to the first one, give it about 60%. 60%. Now there's no one way to do it. So you can play around with these particular values. There's no I don't need any rule to decide 60. I just went to 60. Right. Second one I can give probably 40%. Just so that, because if I give you zero, then there's nothing at this part. It's not visible enough. So I just pump it up to maybe 20 or 40 based on vibes generally. Right. Yes, please go.
Okay, sir. I was asking, how are you able to draw this diagonal line?
Okay, so it's the linear, right? So this is the rectangle we just drew. We just drew a rectangle, right? See, I want to do a card, an ATM card. I just draw a rectangle like this. Curve the corners a bit. Now I'll put white here and then change solid to linear. And when I do that, I'll see a long line here. And then come to this top, click and push, right? Come to the bottom, click and push. Now I have diagonal. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So as I said, the first one, you can just play around with it, change the opacity to something. You can go 50, 60, 80, up to you, till it achieves and attains that effect you want, right? The second one, can give maybe 20, just so this part will be a little bit brighter than what it is at the moment. Because alternatively, if I draw this part down, I will still achieve what I want, but that might be messy. So I just leave it at diagonal corners and then increase this second side, which is this side, to about 20% or 30 maybe, and I have this 20, and I have something like this. So now I've done this. Next thing to do is add a stroke around it, just so it's still legible enough. I'll change your stroke to white also, right? But you can see the white is now too strong. It's like too strong. So you can now apply the same. Then you pump down the opacity, maybe 30% or 40%. Now you see that there's a stroke there, it's not strong anymore, right? Or you then utilize the same thing we did here, linear, and change it to linear. Now we can move this one from the left, same thing to the right. If you want it to show more from the side. Now if I'm hovering on this yellow, right? If this replaced on this yellow, then this second side, I might now want to give it certain level of yellow, maybe a darker version of the yellow, something of this sort, right? If I'm hovering here. But if this is not what you want, then you can just leave it as all white and pump it down. So we have the glass that we're looking for, right? So I said something about having blur. So if I hover on this, you now see that you cannot see this red like the way it is to be little blurry. So how to achieve that is just to come to effects and change drop shadow to background blur. So anything behind it is now blur. Clicking here, you can handle the blur. You can manually adjust it to fit. So if I go 20, meaning whatever is behind is now blur by 20. Now if I carry this and now over here, you can see that this is now blur also. So this is how you create a blast effect. Now to finish what we started, since we are designing an ATM card, so I'll just use my text and put a name there. So I want this to look like what it is normally. Normally they don't use sentence case, they use all capital letters. So instead of coming here now to now change everything to cleaning again and then cap locks, entering everything, I could just, as we discussed yesterday, I could come in here, change my case to all uppercase, and it gives me all uppercase. I want it to be white and give me probably semi-bold to be thicker. No, they're too close. They're too close. They're too close. Right. Because if you look at the normal ATM, they are really not too close. The letter spacing is wider than what it is normally. So in an attempt to make it look like what it's out there, so we then give it this letter spacing, maybe 1%, and then push it out a bit. Let's see how 2 looks. Okay, now we have the name, and then second one that is yeah, of course your chip and then your number here. So in the number, you see that if you notice in your ATM card, they are not together. It's intentional because, as you know, a user cannot, a typical user can only keep 5 through 7, right? Maximum of 7 characters in their memory. So if I put my ATM card number just like this, uh, if you are calling your card number out to me, you might repeat one number twice. That's why they then break it into 4s. So you have this, then you have some spacing also. You have this again, something like this. So this is a typical card. And the bank name here. And something here also as you. So you have your glass card. Then you can work with your different spacing if you want. There's usually a chip here just to show that it is card, and then I think there's something else in your ATM card. But yeah, so the person I was asking for how to create that glass effect. So you could use this now. How to achieve that shape? It's basically the pen tool. So you can just use your pen tool, and then when you click and drag, you get your corners. Then click and drag, you get your corners. Like you have this, you can pump in your stroke if that's what you want. Or you can then continue with if this is what this sort of style you want. So you can have a feel inside. It's not entirely perfect, but because there's still a way you do this to get your exact bending exact curve that you want to achieve. Click on it, you see 2 lines to manually work it basically. So you can do that until you get the exact shape that you want and how you like it. Let's say this is what I want. So if you want to do what we did, turn this F, instead of that you go linear, and let's say we still go left to right. Right. Yeah, let's say go left to right. First one 60, second one about 20. And give it a stroke of white also. This stroke is too much. Go linear also. So it can then stay on your if and when you get a correct shape the way you like it. Of course, it takes time to manually do this for a start. So if and when you get it, then you can make that those effects we just discussed, and then you have it put it by the corner of your board, and you have the effect you're looking for. Talking about spacing, talking about spacing. Um, Now we said to reduce the time it takes for you to design and for you to decide on the spacing scale to use at what point. Sorry, the spacing to use at what point. It's advisable to have a spacing scale. Now, spacing scale helps you distribute properly and appropriately within your design. Now, one thing you should know is that it is better to remove space than to add space. So first start with more space, then remove to fit visual balance. Don't start with small space, then add to fit visual balance. It will be a problem. So start with more space, then add to fit visual balance. Um, Starting with our spacing scale, we are sticking with the 8-point grid. So let's say we have this 8 pixel by an 8 pixel by 8 pixel square. So this is our first spacing. Meaning the distance between two items, the minimum it can be is 8 pixels, right? So this is the minimum it can be. You can go down to 4 if you are working with probably tighter things that need to be related as together at some point. If, for example, in this case, consider I used 4 here because I need them to be close to each other, and this one has its own space. If you look into this, where this thing actually stops is somewhere here, right? I don't know if you can see me though, but there's a line I put here, so this is where it actually stops. Let's just say it's here because of this slash. Meaning I have about 2 more pixels here, right? So 4 plus 2, that's 6. So if I come to this guy again, let's say it's here, I have an extra 3 more pixels. So that's why I just use 4, right? So if you need some things to be closely knit together, then we now go with 4 pixels. So let's say we start with 4, just for consistency. So 4, 8. Our next one now will be 12 pixels. It's because I'm working with the 8-point grid. Remember, the reason we're using 12 is also because 12 can go into 4, right? 12 can go into 4. So 12 pixels. Next one now is 16, right? And 20. Then can have 24. Then 28. Then 32. 28 plus 8. 28 plus 4, yeah, 32. Then we then start jumping. So 32, then start adding 8. The next one now should be 40. The next one now should be 48. And you keep on going like that until you get to probably 96 or a higher value that you know that worst case scenario, this is the maximum distance I would use between two layout blocks, right? I usually stop at 96 at my personally, because I've not used anything greater than 96 pixels in my design ever. So I just stop at 96. I've never used 96 before, right? So that's how. So now, how do you use this? How do you use this spacing? So say I'm to design a card. Let's say an e-commerce card. Things I need from an e-commerce card. I need the image, right? Of course. I need the content. I need the price. I need something like a rating, if possible, if needed, right? Um, Image, content, price, rating, and maybe a call to action, maybe. So these are the five things I need. So starting with my first one. So of course, after I get my layout, after I get my say I work on my device and I have this like, layout grid, change this to column, we work with 4 pixels, and then this is 16. It's safe to leave this 20, more than not, I go with 16 also, 16, 20, 24, just within that range, right? And as we said, different layouts for different sections. Distance between these two might be 16 here. When I get down in my bump up to maybe I need 14 still. When I get down in my bump up, I need just 3, then this now changes. But ideally, 16, 20, 24 should be your gutter, but your margin should be 16, right? It's device dependent. iOS is 16, Android is 16, so just stick to 16. I see people keeping 25 here or 24 here or 20 here. When the developer now start developing, we have problem because what he's developing for does not use 20, they use 16, so we already have 4 pixels loafing around. So just to get acquainted with what standard devices accept and then work from there. So say I have this, but now I want this to only take two of my. It's an e-commerce platform, right? I have my big header here, maybe. I'm a big header here. Of course, I have my title, share my status bar. 100 is 24 pixels, right? Small, something like this. But for iPhone, it's a little bit wider. We need to take all this into memory. In the Figma community, iOS, they give us their own design system. So what you do is just take a default iOS page consisting of the nav bar and then the bottom sheet. It has the height already embedded, so just proceed from there. But if you want to know it as for backup, then you're free to just research on that. I don't know it offhand, but I know that at some point this button should be probably greater than 64, right? Because iOS has a notch at the bottom, something like this. So we also need to put it to configuration and then start our nav bar from about somewhere up here. So our bottom nav about somewhere up here. But probably in the workshop we can discuss more about this, so I won't take much time. So if I want, so I have my big, maybe an ad, top selling products and all of that. I have big ads, what have you. So now I have something that says let's say trending. Let's say I have trending. And the next thing, what I want now is two product images or product cards. I then change my layout. Instead of 4, I should give me 2, but still maintain 16 pixels within them. Now I have something like this. That is 1, and then the second one is 2. I have the size of my card, the typical width of my card. The height I cannot determine right now because I don't know what the size I would like to put the image. I don't know the spacing I'll use, right? So let's just take this out. These are width, so we are not changing the width anymore. We are just messing around with the height. I have an image. So width is 183, meaning we can't go past 183. So ideally, I want my image to span both left to right, like to fill this. So I'll use my image to about 183 also. Right. So let's say this is the image, and let me use the height also to 183. This is on Splash. You just use to get really beautiful images for your design. Yeah, just really nice images for your design. So and I want to be a little bit smaller. Oh. Mhm. Now I have my image. Right, next is my content. So I'll just bring in, instead of coming here to take text again, I have text somewhere. I'll just duplicate it and then start modifying it. Before that, I need the name of this. So I have this. No. Okay. So on the default body text for now, this is going to typography skill also. Our default body text for mobile or web is 16 pixels. By body text, I mean the text you read, 16 pixels. Headers can now go from 18 pixels upwards, right? Depending on your typography skill. But for body text, we use 16 pixels, both on web and on mobile. For you, it might look too small on web, but that is the size for body text on web and mobile, 16 pixels. It's actually our base size. That's what we call the base size. 60 pixels are the base size. So let's say we have this, and then I'll give you 16 pixels maybe. So it is here. Um, if I need a, let me freshly, so now for this, we then go 14 pixels as subtext, right? Subtext 14 pixels. And the spacing between these two, that's where you then employ your spacing skill. But before that, we have price. So we can decide to put the price somewhere here, right? Of course, this one has to be inside this. So we can put, like, put the price somewhere here. Just that is very, very bold. Maybe something like this. Now, if you on before you create a visual hierarchy using size, first test contrast and weight. Before you create a visual hierarchy using size, first test contrast and weight. And this is 1616, right? But then I want this to have more importance than this. I can easily bump this to about 18 pixels. Now it's now big, right? But then I can achieve the same purpose by just leaving this as regular and making it bold so that your eye comes here. Or I can then change this to the primary color so that that's the first thing you see once you get on. But then it's still the same size, right? So before you then dive into size, make sure you have tested width and you have tested contrast. By contrast, I mean this is white, but I want this to have more emphasis. At the same time, I don't want to move it too bold or too thick. I can then just drop the opacity of this a bit. So it's still there, but then it is now faded. So visually, you know that this is more important than this. So when you've tested both of them and then probably they don't give you the hierarchy you so desire, then you can now then work with your size, right? So we have this, and then the next thing we have is a rating. So of course, rating we could put rating inside the card, because if you go to normal products, normal platforms that sell what you're doing, right, e-commerce products, you mostly see the rating inside, either inside or somewhere underneath 4.5 rating, 20% off, right? So we could do that. I'll just show you two samples. Now this is one. The second one could be a 4.5. Give me one sec. Yeah. So say I have 4.5 rating, and then next one is maybe 20% off. Now your use of color also matters here. So you don't want to then use red as this, because let me then just change this one to um, you don't want to now use this, this as red, because ratings are not like this. Natural products you use, their ratings identification are not like this, right? So they are mostly a shade of yellow. But for 10% off, then you can now use that. The distance between these two, what would it be? And you can now decide to start with 8. If it's two still together, then move to 12, which is the next spacing scale. We have 8, and then next is we have 4. Next is 8, then 12 before 16. So distance between these two, start like that. 8 is too much, try 12. Does it work? If yes, that's fine, right? I'll use 8 for this one, so I want them to be together. Um, Now this is one way to do it. Another way is taking this rating, maybe at 10% off, taking this rating somewhere to the top. Sorry, taking this 10% off probably somewhere here, and that may now look more natural than putting the rating there. The rating is usually just underneath this guy. It's black right now. It's we're using this because we're on a black background. But if I try to turn all these guys, maybe put on that frame that houses all these ones and then turn it to white. You see that this works. Well, on black it's too saturated, right? So let's say we are using just temperature off. We don't want to show the rating. So I have this, I have this, I have this. Next thing I want to have now, maybe it's my call to action that says buy now. And as a button, let's just say add to cart. So what distance should I give this from this, from this, from this, from this? This way you now use your spacing scale. So now we have our image. We then want to maybe give this probably 12 pixels distance away. This, so this work, this, then. Now it's properly spaced, it's evenly spaced, enough distance to show that, okay, even though they are related, but this is closer to this than to this because of the spacing difference. This is the last action you take for all of them. But now considering the fact that our width is 183, if I just, now I have all this, at the maximum, let me just put it inside. If I group all of them, one sec, yeah. So if I group everybody, let's just say I group, no, let's try to, let's say I group everybody. 183 is my size of this guy, 183. Now if I bring this one and put it inside here, it fits perfectly well. But then if the second one then comes in, it might not look too busy. So there ought to be like a boundary to show that this is the ending of this, and then this is the beginning of this. That's when you now give it some padding inside. So from this, first off, you draw a rectangle, or let me just introduce you guys to auto layout so that we'll not go through long processes. Auto layout works in the sense that it helps you in grouping things together faster so that when you make any change, every other element automatically adjusts to fit, right? That just auto layout. So instead of you moving things individually, with auto layout, you can just set one value and it just adapts. It will take curiosity to actually understand auto layout to its fullest. Right now, I haven't even understand it to its fullest. No, I use it to do what I need to use to do. So first off, we auto layout this two because it's one line, right? It's at the top. So can't layout this two. Select both of them. Let me just ungroup this. Control Shift G to ungroup. And then our individual elements. So I can select these two, auto layout them. Now if you auto layout the Shift A, if you select two things, on the right hand side you will see auto layout. Just click on plus. That's auto layout. If you do not see plus, just use Shift A and you've added an auto layout to it. Now this is now your auto layout panel. Down is to change the direction. So right now it is horizontal. If I want to change it up to down, I then click here and then it changes up to down. This is the distance between them. Distance between fresh beans and $40 is 56. So I can change this to 12 and then it comes closer, right? Now this is the distance between the original padding. So how far is it from this side and this side? So let's say I put this to be 12. You see that it has added about 12 pixels to the left and 12 pixels also to the right. That's your horizontal padding. Vertical padding is up and down. Now I have 6 pixels up, 6 pixels down, up and down. Before I continue though, when creating buttons, right? Because I might not create a class just for buttons. So as we go, then I'll just chip in one or two things as the spirit leads. Now, when creating buttons, we have padding margin, right? Now, when creating buttons, your horizontal padding, meaning left and right, should be 2 times your vertical padding. So if I'm creating a button and then horizontal padding is 24 pixels, meaning my vertical padding should be 12 pixels, right? So in vertical padding 8 pixels. Now, if I just do that using, say, let me just give a sample, right? I have a text and now to create a button. Ideally, we'll draw a rectangle, put it, then group it. But I could just use Shift A here, Shift A. I have formed a frame, right? An auto layout frame. Under the fill, I click on plus and I give it a fill. So let me just change that. Let me change that quickly. Um, okay, now I have the fill now. All these remain the same. You can give it a corner radius probably of 8 pixels if that's what you want. I have this. But on Figma, it comes with 10 pixel distance, 10 pixel padding horizontally, 10 pixel padding vertically. As I said, your vertical should be half your horizontal. So if I'm creating probably a button for my design, and we know that buttons should be from probably 48 pixels upward, right? Because of your touch radius. So 48 pixels upward, so users with big thumb can touch and they'll still use it. So if I start with um, 24 pixels here, and then this should be 12, it gives me 43. 43 is the height. Now 43 is not what I want because it still does not meet accessibility standard, which is from 44 upward, right? But then buttons 48 upward because 44 is not in our scale. It's in our 8-point grid, right? So 48 upwards. How then do I do this? Now, if I go into the text, I now see that, okay, the line height of the text is 19. The nearest from 19 to our spacing scale is 24. So I use 24. Now that brings my button to 14 pixels height, which is just exactly what I want. So instead of then saying that you don't want to start using 13 here, 13 did not still work, let's try 14. 14 doesn't work, 15. 15 is too much, 14.5. Okay, now I'm having points and points and points. So you see that it doesn't really make much sense. So the best thing to do is just to then try and work with your text in the line height of your text. So now this has given me 48 pixels. At the same time, my vertical is half my horizontal. Horizontal, I mean it's space between this A and this border. That is horizontal. This T and this border horizontal. Space between this up vertical, down vertical. So when creating buttons, your horizontal should be 2 times your vertical. That's when creating buttons. So that's for buttons though. So now now we have buttons. Um, so for these ones, we give it as I was talking about auto layout before I then moved into that. So this is your horizontal spacing, this is your vertical spacing. And in a case where visually this is looking too far, but then this is okay. So you want to reduce the top of your horizontal of your vertical spacing. On auto layout, there's something like this 4 dots. So it is you breaking it individually. You then splitting it and then managing each section individually. You click on it, then it then gives you on the left, how many do you want to the left? So say I want 10, you see that only the left will be affected. The distance to the left is 10, but to the right is still 12 because we said left 10, right 12. I wanted the top to maybe 4 instead of 6, then you see that okay, it's now 4, but the bottom is 6. So use it when you want to use it. Now um, that's that for auto layout settings. But there's also one called space between and packed. That's if you click on this place, packed space between. Space between is like distribute them I equally. So say I have more than one, I have probably 3 of this. Yeah. Let's say I have 3 of this. So if I want to use space between, it's more like distribute them. If I keep on duplicating, let me just bring this out. So remember I had 3. I had just 3. So if I set it to space between, if I add one more, it doesn't increase the width anymore. It then just gives adequate, it then ignores this thing I said before. It's not automatic. So this container, whatever is inside, the distance between them is dependent on what's inside. So if this is fresh beans, this one is it is also. Yeah, the spacing between them 39, same 39 to me. So it gives you equal spacing between all of them, regardless of your distance you set. That space between. With constant usage, you will understand where to use space between and where not to. Fact gives you revert you back to normal. So then allows you modify the way you want. So if I say I want 12 pixels between each of them, meaning each of these guys are 12. I say no, it's too close. I want 24. So instead of coming to move them one by one, like I would do normally, I could just click enter one value and then it gives me the same equal spacing around. Before I wrap up what Authors it's they're moving to what we're doing before. So there's something called fixed width and then fill container. There's fixed width called content fill container. Fixed width is, as the name implies, at this width don't increase. If my text increases, let my container not increase. Container is this thing that is blue. Container is if you hover on if you click on something, you see that the blue thing around it. So that's the container. So it's saying that if I whatever I do to this screen, whatever I do to this section, if I type this as long as yeah, whatever you do, don't increase my width. It is fixed. So just let them keep on going outside. So you can see that the blue is still here. Meanwhile, things are out. Right? That's for fixed width. Now the next one we have is hub content. Now hub content is saying that these are my content. 1, 2, 3, 4. My content. So if I select the frame and tell it to hub content, it then hugs whatever I enter. So it now resizes based on what I've entered, as you can see. Unlike before, where this is just where the blue is, it doesn't affect all these guys. Once I set it to all content, it then affects them and they now become one happy family, right? So there's something called field container also. Now you use field container when you have more than one auto layout. When you have two auto layout together. So let's say we have two of this, maybe this and this. And now let's say I don't want this, I don't want this, I just want this guy. So this and this. I then auto layout them shift A or come here and click on plus. So shift A. Now I have a new width, right? I have a new width. But this one, I want it to fill container to this place. I want it to take everywhere. Right now, it stops at only fresh and fresh. So I come here and I say fill container. Now it spans the whole width because this is the longest, so it adapts to fit the longest, spans everywhere. Now, when would I need this? In a case where I want something like this and I want this fresh to be somewhere here, not here. One way to do it is to increase the distance between them, right? And then the fresh is there. Now the implication is that when I start typing, when this fresh now turns to refresh bins, right? It's out. It's no more where I want it to be. So how can we now handle this? How can we push this fresh to this right hand side? That's why we now use fill container also again. So you click on your first fresh and then you tell it to fill container, meaning fill the container but leave, remember with the 24 pixel spacing here, but leave a 24 pixel gap between them. So if peradventure this change to fresh bins, it will enter properly because it still has a very long way to go before it then breaks. Funny thing that when it even gets there, it doesn't expand. Once it gets to this part, it breaks and breaks into a second line. So this guy is still here, right? This is where you use fill container and how to use fill container. Now another thing also is this is the alignment. As you can see, the ones at the top here are disabled. Now if I click on normal rectangle, normal element, they are enabled, right? But in auto layout, they then come inside here. So this is what you use to align it. In this case, so let me just show you. Say I have two things. As you can see, this fresh is still at the top. That's because we have it here, top left. If I bring it to the left center, that's come here. If I bring it to the left bottom, it will go down, right? Same thing for the center, right. For all this right now, you get to see them when you are now scaling as you go. It sticks at the right and all of that. So this just know that this is where you handle alignment. So now back to this one. So I will then also allow this to shift A, but then I want a 16 pixel between them because my fresh base can turn to something else. Now this also, this is the width I want, about 8 pixels from it. I then also layout this to and I want 8 pixels away from it, but I want this guy to be here. That's fine. Then this one fill container, then fresh bins fill container. So this is what I want. This fill container, right? If it increases, it still stays inside just that box. Now I have this. This also go inside. Same thing. For instance, I might even want you to be at the top shelf. And lastly, my button that says add to cart. More often than not, you might not use the button here. What people use is just the icon, maybe plus or something. Now I have this, then my button, I can now decide to also have my button with these guys. Or let's just put it also inside this, just so we have one thing. These two, auto layout them. Let's say we have a pixel between them. Now we have 183, which is the width of what we have here, but then there's still some offset, which is fine, right? Now if this comes inside this, it adapts properly, but then we want a certain level of border around it or something to say that it's not irregular. You can try to still give it give it padding, because right now we have one full auto layout. So we can try to give it padding, but we won't do that because we've already given this guy padding of 8, and we said we want this one to fulfill the width, right? So we'll just give this a fill, which is white. I'll turn off my grid. Sorry, I'll turn off my grid. I'll change all the white I have here, or the F to maybe 1F. No. Just nice, yeah. Now I have this and this. Then I need some margin at the bottom of this button, so I can then handle this guy and say at the bottom, maybe give me 12 also. So there's no space at the bottom. Rounding of 4 pixels. Just a subtle drop shadow. Now it's looking like what I want. Like it's looking close to what I want. And it's looking close to what I want. But if you notice, there's an inconsistency here. The roundness is at the bottom, but there's no roundness at the top. Now to do that at the top, if I round, mind you, I rounded everything, but then because this my image does not have a roundness, so that's why it is sharp. So I click on the image, I come in here. Remember, we can then round individual corners by clicking on this thing. So you click on it, and then I want my top left to be 4 pixels, top right to be 4 pixels. That's because at the bottom here we said 4, so the top also should be 4, just so it's consistent. Now I have something like this, but then the spacing in between is still looking too tight. So this way now adjust it to fit what you need. So maybe I want the distance between these two, the 12 pixels if possible, or let's leave it at 8. The distance between the button and this, then you can then go over the 16 pixels if that's what I want. But in all, when you get what you want, you can then duplicate it, and then you have just two buttons, and then you've utilized your spacing skill. You don't have to think about whether to go 13, 12 because you already have them, that okay, this is what I'll be using all through, and then you use them to get to what you want. So you tone the color, tone the text to fit how you like it. Maybe pump this guy down a little bit so it's not too emphasized, and just stick with 10% off. And then we have this add to cart. There's an image to tell the user, okay, this is the image, 10% off. This way you're buying, this is the price, add it to cart, and then we move from there. Yes, I saw somebody hand up.
Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Um, you were saying something about fill container. I can't figure out how you were able to do that.
Yeah, so fill container, you need about 2 things to use fill container. So if I just have one auto layout, right? Say I have just this auto layout, I can't fill anything because there's no container to fill, right? But then if I have 2 things, maybe I have another text, and then I auto layout them, then I can tell this one to fill container. So take the whole width of the container we have, right? That's saying that if my if I continue typing, once we get to the end of that container, it breaks down. Now, if for any reason this container resizes, right, this thing that I said fill container also resizes. This one is not fill container, it's hot content, that's why it's not resizing. But the moment I set it to fill container and everybody inside, right, to fill container, it then resize as my container is resizing. Do you understand?
Not quite. I'm talking about where the fill container button is because I can't see what you are actually clicking on.
At the top right, if I select this, right, I select just this text. At the top, where you see your width, height, you will see something like horizontal resizing. If you click on the drop down, you see three things: fill container, hot content, and fixed width. Can you see it?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yeah. So now we've just for the purpose of the person that needed, we are still on the person that needed the typing skill. I mean the spacing skill and glass card. So for today, what we're talking about mostly is typography skill. So we've spoken about it a bit, right? But let's just talk about it a little bit more. So typography skill, having our, of course, everything it will be within the 8-point grid, so we are consistent. Now, there's a base value for 16 pixels. A base value, I mean your body text. More often than not, your body text is your base value, right? So the standard size for body text for both web and mobile platform is 16 pixels. By 16 pixels, I mean 16 pixels. Your font size should be 16, right? That's standard size for body text, both web and mobile. But before that, if you're familiar with HTML and CSS, if you're familiar with SEO, if you're not, even though you're not, right? If you use MS Word, you'll see where they say heading, heading, you say heading one, heading two, heading three, and then there's something like subheading, and there's body. If you use MS Word, you see all those things. Now, same thing applies when designing. So we have heading one. Now, heading one is mostly the title of your page, right? Heading one is mostly the title of a section. For mobile, title of your page. For web, it's your hero section title or your page title. Then contact us. That contact us will take heading one size, right? Well, how do we get heading one? How do we get heading two, heading three, subheading, body text, footer, labels? How do we get all those things? So we start with our base value, which is 16 pixels. Now we have 16 pixels. Now the next one after 16, working with our point grids, yeah, it's 20 pixels. Next after this, let me just pump this to 20. Next after this is 24 pixels. For some weird reason, I think we've done something like this before. 24 pixels, and then the next one is 28 pixels, and then the next one is 32 pixels. Okay, yeah, that was during our workshop. 32 pixels. So I'll just break this down. 32, and then we have 40. And then I have 48. Oh, 48. Next one is 56. The 6 plus 8. Right, so just can I do addition here? 64 pixels. So as usual, we'll move up to probably 96, just up to that height, up to that size. So you have a scaling system. Now there are two ways to go about it. Now the first way is using the rule of fifth. Rule of fifth is one. I think rule of third. 1:1.618. 1:1.618. So can everybody see my screen though?
Sir,
Yes,
please, we didn't
yes.
get you. Say rule of what?
Yes.
Yes, rule of third. Rule of third, rule of fifth. Rule of third says that 1:1.1.68. 1.618, yes. So 1 being your base value, right? So our base value is 16. Now the next scale after your 16 should be your base value times 1.618. Base value times 1.618. So base value is 16 times 1.618. Now you're having 25.89. So you're having point and point. So that you round up or round down. This one if round up is 26. And it does not stay within our point we are using. So it's advisable to use this also called modular grading. So it's advisable to use your grading, not following mathematics, right? Use the one that you know, normal 4, 8, 16, 4, 8, 12, 16, you know. But this is just to help you stay in check. But to avoid all this point, because if I want to follow this rule now, the next one is 26 times 1.618 to give me my next scaling. That's about 41. So we're still going upward and it's way too far. So just stay with your normal 8, 16. So it creates a scale that encompasses all use cases. So peradventure I want to work with a body. I have this. I want to work with a subheading. Maybe I need a subheading. I have 20 pixels. If maybe I need something in between, right? Maybe 16 is too small, 20 is too large. I can then work with 18 pixels. That's 16 plus 2, right? 18 pixels. And it still works. But then using that rule, it might not work. It might not be accepted. You get. So now we have all this. Now we have this for our body. We have this for, yes, your question. Yes, you have a question.
Sorry, it was a mistake. Apologies.
Okay. So one sec. So now we have this. We have this for our body. To get smaller sizes, right? We're now getting smaller. We don't want to now pay more attention to little pixels. So if I take out 4 from here, what remains is probably 12. That's 12 pixels. 4 also, what remains is 8. That's 8 pixels. So 8 pixels is the least you can go to stay with 10, not actually 8. Of digital interface. So 8 might be way too small, so you stay with. If in the case where 12 is too big, then you stay. How we got 10 is adding 2 here, which is among the even value, adding to 12 to 4, 4, 8, we'll keep moving, just like that. So as you can see now, we have a progressive spacing system, typography system. So any of these things now can be used anyway. In this case now, if 12 is too much here, I can then use maybe 10, and then I get something up. Yeah. So I didn't get the size that I want it to be, and that's fine by me. But I do not now think too much whether should I use 9 or should I use 7, because I already had what I'm using, right? So how do you use this in your typography, in your design? So there's something called style guide. A style guide is just a set of elements, colors, color palette, typography, and components that you intend on using across your design. So that's the definition of style guide. What this does is it helps you create a sense of unison between yourself and developer. It also helps you create consistency. Let's say, and then Figma also helped us in making things easier by creating styles. So styles are now, if you notice, when I was making this circle, right, I did not start looking for the shade of yellow I want. I had already pre-created it, and then I could just use it. Now, if I decide to change this for any reason, let me just remove this. Now, if I decide we have to use this to multiple places, and then the client now comes and say, our brand color just changed. Can you help us change it? Now, the importance of style is that instead of having to go individually to change them, if I use the style for all of them, I could just come to the style, modify it, and then just put the new color the client says he wants, and it goes everywhere. It affects it all around because I made it into a style, right? I converted it to a style. Now, how do you do that? If you create a color palette, right? I saw some of you did it. That's fantastic stuff. If you create a color palette, so you have oh, this guy is white. So maybe you have the color palette of different colors, and then you need to, instead of going to collect 6B and writing it down somewhere, I can click on the place that houses um my column, right? Inside fill, you will see two things. Before you click on plus, you will see something there that's like a four circles. Clicking on it, it opens the color style. You see plus there also. Now these are all the ones that I have created because different. If I created in different projects and under my name, I can access it from different places, from one place, right? But for this project, the one I created only is this one, and I tell you just now. So if I want to add a new one, I'll see a plus here, click on plus, then tells you to name your style. So I can call it maybe primary color. There are better ways to name this though, but we'll not dive into that. It's too deep right now. So I then create my style. Now what I've done is, if I want to change maybe all this white to primary color, so instead of then coming to first check the green, copy the hex value, I can come here, select them under this, and then change it to, I think this is primary color. Now all of them are changed to primary color. Now you can do the same thing for your typography. Now when we have our 16 pixels typography, so say now we've created this. We have our 16 pixels typography. We want to call it paragraph. Under text, right, you see that same four color thing. Click on it, then you can access. If you've done the other projects, you can always access it and then use. If not, you see plus. Click on it, then give your style a name in paragraph. Paragraph 16 pixels. So what this means is that I have a new style, text style named paragraph 16 pixels. So if I'm designing, say in this case now I want this to now become paragraph 16, to now become a paragraph. Instead of coming here to change to 16, change the line height to what I normally use, I could just come up here and then select that paragraph 16 that I have pre-created. Now I have it. So right now it is paragraph 16, just like what I created in my style guide. So this will reduce your time, the time it takes for you to do stuff, basically. Now, something called line height. We talked about line height earlier. That is the distance between your first line and your second line if you are writing for multiple lines. But then how do you calculate this line height? I know I said, I remember I said line height usually has auto. So when I see 16, when I enter the value I want, in this case now, um, um, say this is 8. This 8, this is 10, this is 12, and we get the 14. And then I have 16. So if I come to, if I go to 14, or let's say I come to 14, yeah. What's here is auto, default by default auto. If I click on it, now I see 17. Right, 17 is what's there. Now it's not advisable to have odd numbers as your line height. That's because our pixel grid, remember we have, when we are creating, if I zoom in, everything you see here, they're all one pixel. Each of them is 1 pixel. If I draw a rectangle just inside this small box, it will be 1 by 1, right? 1 pixel by 1 pixel. So each of these boxes are 1 pixel. Now imagine I have 3 pixels, right? Or no, let's say I have we are working with 8-point grids, and then we now start having odd numbers inside. You'll notice that the distance you then have later on might start having some discrepancies. Some will have some decimal numbers, which we don't want. So it's advised that when working with text, your line height should not be an odd number, right? Looking at this 14, for example, the line height they give us is 17. I could work with 18, but the next one from my system, right? I'm working with the point grids. The next one from my system is 20. It has passed 16, which is the closest. The next one is 20. So my line height for a 14 pixel text would now be 20. So now this is my line height 20, right? Same thing applies for 16. If I want to go to 16, nearest line height is going to be 24. It's 19 here, but then 20 is now too close because if we tested it that day, so if we work with 20, it's still too close. So we then move to 24, which is the next system that we have going on. Another way to work with to get your line height is by multiplying by 1.25. Multiply by 1.25 or 1.25. Yeah, if you multiply by 1.25, now you get, so let's say we have by 1.25, it means if I'm using 18, my line height should be 18 times 1.25. So if I use 18 times 1.25, I'm having 22.5, which is a problem. The next one after 25, rounding up is 23. Now they said we should not use odd numbers for line height. The next one is 24. So 18 is also 24. But then I was using a book, and then they also advised, they said we should multiply by 1.5 instead of 1.25 if we are going the multiplication route. So that all these things they are still under construction. So the best way to just do it is when you go in there, whatever they give you, either you round it up to your nearest scale or round it down to your nearest scale, right? And also this line height, as we spoke about yesterday, is totally dependent on usage. So now I have 18 pixels to be 24. Now say I want to say I have 18 24. Now if I have multiple lines, maybe 3 lines, now it still works, right? But you might get to a stage where probably when you're working with bigger text, and then your line height might be tight even after you used your rounding up to the nearest scale or rounding down. When you then use your visual eyes as a human, as a designer, you remove the systematic hat, then you use your visual eyes to give enough room between your designs. But more often than not, using your scale will save you the stress of doing that. Now this about skill. Now where do we use this and why do we use this? Smaller ones are used for, say, bottom nav in your mobile app. If you are designing your mobile app, you see all those things that rectangle that is here that shows your home icon, home setting, all of that. You can now put the text maybe in home. So if maybe you have 5 things here, or maybe they are too long, right? Maybe home, my bookings, they are too long. Then you can now use 8 pixels. But if the text is appropriate, like it's just the way you want it, then ditch your 8, start from 10. So your bottom nav uses either 8 or 10 pixels, right? Now 12 pixels are mostly used in web, or as you can see, if you want to use it somewhere here, 12 pixels can work, right? So, but more often than not, 12 pixels is used in, on the web. Let me just go, for example, on the web. Let me see what Fritic has. So all these footers, all this, yeah, this footer, now all these things, these are where you might not decide to use 12 pixels. So let's see what they use there. And is this what font? Okay, no, Provisional now font ninja. The font. So for this Proximal Nova, they use 14 pixels, and you know that the it's also dependent on your font. As we saw, that not all fonts have the same styling. The 40 pixels of a sans serif might not be the same as the 40 pixels of a serif. Even within that typeface serif, 40 pixels of a Lato might not be the same as 40 pixels of a Roboto, right? So it's now based on what you want to use. But then within that range, 12, your between the ending of your spacing scale, I mean your typography scale, 12, 10, 8. 14, 12, 10, 8. For most times, 12, 10, 8. Except your 14 pixels of the font you use is very small and it looks like 12 pixels of natural fonts, so of regular fonts, just like this. Right now they use 14 for this, but then if you want to use a different platform, maybe a different font, you see that okay, this is 12, right? The next one is 14 pixels. Now we use this for labels. For labels, now how do I mean labels? If you want to, when we're designing that sign up screen, when we're designing the sign up screen and login screen, you see that full name, then input field. Input field having 14 pixels, input field, and then something here that says full name. So for this full name, we don't use pixels, no, we use 14 pixels. So that's what we use this 14 for. Labels. 16 pixels, as we talked about it, is used for your body text or your body text, 16 pixels. We can also use 14 pixels for body text in a place. Now, if you're reading blogs, there's a part where the text is intentionally smaller than other sections. Now, it's still a body. It's not a label at that point. It's still a body, but they wanted to reduce. They wanted to emphasize by de-emphasizing. How do I mean? The singular fact that they reduced the size of that text drew your attention to that text. So they have emphasized by de-emphasizing that text. 18 pixels are used for subheadings. 18, 20, 24 is for subheadings. Um, by subheadings, I mean things like things like this. This is not a body, right? This is subheading. This is your normal regular. As you can see in this one, the regular now is 18 pixels. I mean the body text is 18 pixels, but this body you are seeing now in another font, it is 16 pixels, right? And this also your subheading, heading one, right? The biggest heading you will see ever in your design. So 18, 20, 24, all these are for subheading. It also depends on what you're using. I mean, if you are designing for mobile, you most likely stop at 40. If you're designing for mobile, you most likely stop at 40. Because anything greater than this might then pose a problem. If I see some using 48, also it depends on your font, on the font you're using, sorry, on the typeface you're using. That's why all these things you get your typeface down first before you then start working with this. Don't use there's no one scale for all. I cannot say use 20 for this, use 24 for this because your 20 for a typeface can be 18 for another typeface. So the typeface comes first before your scale then follows suit, right? But what more often than not, what we use, I'll send a list of sizes and where it's used both for mobile and for desktop. I mean, a guide that you can have for both mobile and desktop so that it can help you create your own guide. It's not like it's a masterpiece, but then it is a guide that you can use that will help you create your own typographic guide with respect to your own typography, like the typography you selected for your project. For web, your header one now will be around from this 56 upward. Header one, that is your main title header. Um, for example, in yeah, so for example, like this one, right? This the New York Times. This is the big table, and this is maybe header two, header two, header two, header two. All the small ones are subheadings, right? Subheadings. Header three. This is then your body text, and then you can proceed from there. But there's, as I said earlier, there's no sample. There's no saying that this is this is the must. This is how it must go. Everything still boils down to you as a designer to make it work the best of your knowledge. So I think I will entertain questions now because I think I've covered this pressing skill. We will not be able to use this on an actual web. I actually wanted to use the skill we prepare on a on a live website. Probably we use to design probably a sample website. They know where we use this and how to use this. But in our next class, or maybe in a workshop, or let's say in our next class, I will use somebody's type skill. Because part of your assignment this week could be preparing a type skill. You choose a font, you tell me why you chose that font, and prepare a type skill for me, right? Then I'll use someone's type skill and then we'll design with it. Whatever comes out from that person's type skill is what you receive in our final design. So at this point, I will entertain questions if we have any, and yeah, dismiss the class. So do you have any questions so far?
Yes, I have a question. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Aisha.
So I remembered you were saying something yesterday about font not being um not being Lato, Inter or Roboto. So what exactly is font? I didn't quite get what you called font. Thank you.
Okay, where is that slide again? Yeah. So font basically, yeah, is font is I'll share the slide with us. But let me just give you an example. Inter, all these are typeface, right? Inter, sans serif, Lato, they're all typeface. Font is then this. Font is same as font width. Font equals font width. So font is all this. Roboto light. Typeface is Roboto. Font is Roboto light. Roboto medium. Roboto semi bold. Right. It's a new discovery that I found out recently. So I might still have to double check and see that that's the right thing I'm saying. But from what I understood, font is Lato, um, Inter, Roboto light, medium, bold. Those are fonts. But typeface is Roboto itself, Lato itself, and all of that. You get.
Hmm. Thank you. I get it
Right.
now.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Hi. So I just wanted to just confirm something. So you said fonts are like medium, like the different font weights, then typefaces, Roboto, Inter, them. So I want to ask, for Roboto, like I saw something like Roboto has like different variations, like there's Roboto Slab, Roboto Sans, but they're still like the same type of Roboto. So are those ones, those other variations, are they called fonts too or typeface?
No, those are fonts. Those are fonts.
Okay, those different variations of Roboto.
Yeah, Roboto is the whole type, is the
O-
whole family.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Right, but yeah, I also confirm this and share it out to you guys probably on Slack, just so we are all on the same page. You get
All right, thank you.
yeah. Any other question? Okay, so if there is none, I would share the slide for typography. Then this meeting also would be shared with you guys, so you can go through them again. Then I would catch you guys in the next class. Enjoy your weekend and see you guys next class. Yeah.